The green frog, a fixture on the landscape for millions of years, is having an identity crisis. A study by David Skelly, an ecology professor at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, found male frogs living in the ponds and lakes of Connecticut are growing eggs in their testes.
This is a green frog. The scientific name for it is Rana clamitans. This is one of the more common frogs in the United States. When a kid comes into the kitchen and yells, "Mom, look, I caught a frog," there's a very good chance that it's a green frog.
Frogs in suburban areas are more likely than their rural counterparts to develop reproductive abnormalities.
What we find when we look inside of these frogs, in about 1 in 8 of these frogs across the whole sample, is that the testes of an animal that otherwise appears to be a male are also producing eggs. It's abnormal. There are a couple of terms for it. One of them is that animal is a hermaphrodite, and that's a word that some people may be familiar with. Another term that's used by people is intersex. Both of them mean essentially the same thing, that you have an animal that's exhibiting traits that are associated with both sexes. When we go to places that are predominantly forested, they're undeveloped, we don't find this at all. When we go to places that are agricultural, we actually find in most of the ponds we go to, we don't find any deformities at all. When we go to places that are in suburban and urban areas like this, we find the most deformities, up to 1 in 5 animals. And that suggests to us that the explanation that we started thinking we would end up at, and that is agricultural pesticides, is not our leading idea of what's going on. The fact that this is going on in both urban and suburban areas at very high rates leads us to think about other possibilities. And of those, the one that we're particularly interested in following up is the idea that pharmaceuticals are being released into the environment and may be having these effects.
During the 3-year-long study, Skelly's team collected and examined over 230 frogs.
The reason that we chose green frogs is because they do have this characteristic of being found in a variety of landscape types. So we find them in suburban and urban places like this. We find them in agricultural areas, and we can also find them in forested areas. Ironically, the hardest place to find this species is in undisturbed places. They tend to be associated with people to some extent. Even though this is a native species, even though it was certainly here before people got here, we tend to create the kind of ponds and lakes that it really likes. Well, the basic approach to catching frogs is to get in touch with your inner 8-year-old. And, but we try to be as sophisticated about it as we can. So generally the way we catch these things is you have 2 people work a shoreline together. One person goes shallow or maybe even on the shore. The other person goes deep, and you kind of move along in this pincher movement. And that way, if a frog gets scared by one person, it moves towards the other, or vice versa. So after we collect the animals, then we need to bring them back to the laboratory. They have to be preserved in a very particular way that allows them to be prepared for histology. So that's where we dissect out the gonad, cut it into slices, very thin slices, mount it on a slide, stain it so that we can see the features inside of the testis, and then all of the slides have to be screened. Hundreds and hundreds of slides have to be gone through individually. Specifically, what we're looking for when we go through the slides, we're looking for abnormalities that could be of a variety of descriptions, but the one that we were very much focused on was the existence of eggs inside the testis of these ostensibly male frogs.
Professor Skelly doesn't know the cause of the frog abnormalities, but suspects that human activity is playing an important part.
It turns out that when we take a prescription, much of what we take into our bodies leaves our bodies, and when it leaves our bodies, it either goes into a septic field or a sewage treatment plant. And when it goes there, some of that can persist and end up in the environment. Recent tests of surface waters are showing a whole cocktail of things that we hadn't really thought about very much before are ending up in surface waters. The concern is that these same waters are also used by people. And these pharmaceuticals and other agents that are being passed through septic fields and sewage treatment plants are ending up in these places where people might be exposed to them. We have no idea what the risks are to people, but one way to start to dial in on that would be to use amphibians as a model system to find out what's happening to the amphibians that are sitting in this water all the time. If effects are showing up on them, they give us clues to figure out what would other vertebrates like humans be exposed to and what might it do to them as well. I'm not a fear-mongering sort of person, and I very much hope that we find out that the risks are minimal, but they should be investigated. We should know the answer to this.
For more information about Professor David Skelly and his work at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, visit environment.yale.edu.